All right, now we're going to get down to the nuts and bolts of the rail industry and what it really means. You're going to be surprised to find out all the jobs that are created, everything that comes through from the ground up. Leading will be our moderator, Dennis Kearns. Dennis, a lot of you already know, is an attorney and advocate for transportation issues before the Texas legislature and executive agencies. Dennis retired from BNSF Railway in 2013 after a very successful 37-year career as an attorney in the railroad industry. He currently serves as a government affairs consultant for BNSF and Texas Short Line and Regional, and has just been booted up as the chair of the Transportation Advocates of Texas, a very robust group. Please welcome Dennis Kearns, our moderator.
Good morning. Nice and chilly out there. I grew up in Chicago, so I shouldn't be shocked by all this, but nevertheless, I've been in Texas for over 26 years, and every time a blue norther comes down, I say to my wife, can you imagine how much colder it would be if we were still up in Chicago? But nice to be here. This is the 12th, I was talking to Peter before, the 12th convocation of this group. 265 attendees, so Peter's got a good thing going here with the Texas Rail Advocates. And in my role as the government affairs attorney for BNSF over the years in Texas, also as chairman of the Texas Railroad Association, general counsel of the Texas Railroad Association, we have valued the support of the Texas Rail Advocates. They are able to gin up letters and phone calls to legislators and key people in government when we need help to push an issue, whether it's tax policy influencing the railroad industry and our colleagues in the railroad supply group. That's going to be the focus of this panel. How does our colleagues in the railroad supply industry boost and enable our efforts to advocate on behalf of freight, rail transportation, passenger rail, regional passenger rail, transit, and so I have some gentlemen joining me here this morning. First, Craig Ebersol with Archer Western Herzog. Craig, please join us. Nick Manley with the Knorr Brake Company, and Wiggy Shell from Georgetown Rail Equipment Company. Gentlemen, have a seat. We'd like to start off by give the group a little synopsis of your history in the railroad industry and the railroad supply industry, and then we'll get into the nuts and bolts of what your respective companies do, and then I'll ask you some questions about how you can help us out in our advocacy roles. So Craig, go ahead.
Thank you. I work for Herzog Contracting. I've worked for Herzog for 18 years. I started off as a bridge laborer on a carpenter's crew. And I've gone through all the phases of our different divisions in the company. I now work for our heavy civil division, and we're here in Texas working on the TexRail project.
Very good. Thanks, Craig. Nick, how about you?
Yes, I'm Nick Manley. I've worked in the rail industry for many years. Started off in the UK in the HVAC business, primarily supporting the UK and Asian markets. I've also worked in the HVAC industry in the US with Westcoat and with Knorr. Been with Knorr 6 years. I've just started again with them. I worked for them a couple of years in Japan, also developing that market for the brake systems as well as integrating the HVAC and door systems into the business too.
And Wiggy?
I'm Wiggy Sherrill with Georgetown Rail Equipment. We go by G-Rex. 38 years in the rail industry. 21 of those were with Georgetown Railroad, which is a short line there right outside of Austin in Georgetown. And in '93, the oldest brother split off and started his own company with this innovative equipment that we built during the time I was with Georgetown Railroad. So basically a supplier.
Okay. As you can see, we have three good representatives from the oil supply industry. There are many of you out there. I've had a chance to circulate and meet a lot of you folks that do a lot of things that are in the background, but a very important aspect of the railroad industry. In Washington, D.C., there's the Railway Progress Institute. You know, Tom Simpson has been a very effective advocate. For example, the recently enacted FAST Act. There were a lot of provisions in there that were of concern to the railroad industry, including provisions that would alter the truck size and weight standard, and we were able to block that, and that was with a lot of lobbying help from railroad suppliers. So I know there are others of you out there that have a strong role in the economy of the railroad industry, and we'll have time for some Q&A afterwards. But using these three as an example, we would like to demonstrate to you what it is that these companies do in terms of purchasing raw materials that are manufactured, that are sold to the railroad industry, where their plants are located, number of employees, and so why don't we start with you? Right.
Sure. Thank you. I'm just going to stand up. My company is Herzog Contracting. We've been in business since 1969. We were founded by Bill Herzog as an asphalt company. We did a little work here in Texas, a lot of work in Missouri and Kansas. In 1972, the Herzog Contracting Corporation got a railroad contract. And from 1972 to today, our growth has increased to around $600 million a year of revenue. So we've grown and become basically concentrated around the rail industry. Yeah, thank you. So the company has grown into 6 basic divisions or companies. We service heavy contracting, railroads in the signal and communication construction of the DCTA line. Here are some of the things that Technologies is able to do. Signal services design, install, test, and maintain, as well as our PTC services. We'll have one of the first systems in California going online and accepted by the FRA soon. So my division is Herzog Contracting and heavy civil contracting. Almost all the jobs you'll see here in Dallas, one way or another, we've either been partnered with or subcontracted to Southwestern. This job, the Dallas Urban Circulator, we finished last year. DART CMGC-1 was a $400+ million project here in Dallas, partnered with, we were subcontracted to the Archer. I'm sorry, the amount of jobs is another thing that's important for each one of these slides. South Oak Cliff, we're working as a subcontractor on this job. That job itself has created 250 construction jobs in the Metroplex. CMGC-3 was finished in 2010, I believe. Over 600 jobs on that project, 800 jobs on that project. TexRail is in pre-construction. It was talked about pretty in-depth last night. We expect to go to construction services in the second quarter of this year. We also expect that we'll have over 500 construction-related jobs created for that, and then another 75 jobs for the operations and maintenance. The A train was built from Denton to Trinity Mills Station, where it connects with DART. That was completed in 2012. Again, our partner is Archer. And then we've got these projects all over the country. I was here in Texas for NUROF, the maintenance facility for CMGC-1, for CMGC-3, also for the Denton County project. I left, and this is what happens. if you don't have consistent funding, our jobs will travel around where the construction is. Some of our other major projects, Toronto subway system, where they've got somewhere around $35 billion projected and funded for the next 20 years in Ontario. On to the next. You can see that we've got a lot of work around LA. The big work that we've had that was actually mentioned in the last presentation is developing the expansion of both of the ports in LA and Long Beach. These projects are all over the place. You have heavy development in passenger rail in Utah, Salt Lake City, Denver, and I could go on and on about all of these projects, but the point is that each one of these projects that are publicly or locally funded bring jobs into the Metroplex and into these communities. So with the growth of the rail industry, the growth of Herzog has followed along, and we're now at about 2,000 people servicing, again, all of the different types of, all the different aspects of the rail industry. Some of the funding that the major projects that we listed, FTA, state and local taxes, local grants, Tiger programs, and to some extent, capital funding for intercity passenger rail. The rest is about economic growth, benefit of the rail industry, and that's been covered very well so far. One of the interesting things that, thank you. One of the interesting things that about Dallas is that we're going to go to over 10 million people in 2040, and that infrastructure has got to be able to grow with the amount of people that are coming in through. The benefits of rail development, safety, that's just increasing with PTC, speed of moving passengers and people, and also freight, capacity, comfort, it's a lot easier than driving. Environmental protection, reduce the amount of cars, reduce the amount of traffic, reduce the amount of over-the-road trucks. Economic feasibility. And that's pretty much Herzog in short. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Well, Craig, that was quite a revelation. I had no idea the extent of your operations and contributions to the railroad industry. We have two other gentlemen here to make presentations. Nick, why don't you go next?
Will do.
Okay. So thank you first of all, to Peter Cody of the Texas Rail Advocates and to Anne Canby of One Rail for the invitation to be here on this panel and to give you a bit of perspective for us as a supplier on the impact that consistent and predictable funding makes to a passenger rail equipment supplier's business. Just a quick note on Knorr, and no, we're not the soup company. That's the Knorr soup, very famous, but yeah, I often get asked that question, and no, we are a brake manufacturer. KBC that I work for is part of Knorr Bremse GmbH, based out of Munich, Germany. We just celebrated 110th anniversary last year. And just to put into perspective, we are the world's leading supplier of brake equipment for both the rail and commercial vehicle markets. And just to put it into perspective, about every day 1 billion people put their trust into Knorr's brake systems in either the rail or commercial vehicle markets. Our headquarters is in a new facility in Maryland. I'll come and show you a couple of pictures of that shortly. They're located, everyone necessary for the support the North American market, that's US, obviously Canada and Mexico. for both all systems, or for all systems, I should say, the brake, door, and HVAC equipment. We also have auxiliary power units and LVPS manufactured under our KB PowerTech group, located in New Jersey. Got there too fast. We have about 150 million in sales, and in the location in Maryland, there are now 300 employees. Or to put it another way, there's 300 families that are dependent on consistent and predictable funding for the passenger rail industry. Worldwide, we have 24,000 people. These are located in 100 countries, 100 locations rather, in 29 countries. 80 of those locations are where we have manufacturing activity. Worldwide, we are still very dependent upon consistent and predictable funding for the passenger rail market. Our facility here, I'll show you a couple of pictures of the interior. And I want to make a couple of points about this. Yes, sir, it's a very clean and modern facility, very low energy use, and you're very proud of it, etc. But it's not purely bragging rights I'm putting it up here for. It's that this facility was really only conceivable after Knorr had been in the U.S. market for some 30 years. The rail industry, and I know I'm talking to a lot of the choir or the converted, but it's not a rich man's game, the passenger transit industry. This isn't Silicon Valley where we can suddenly throw $23 million at a facility and fill it with 1,000 software engineers. This is progressive incremental business. And after 30 years, we're at the point where we could invest in this facility. And this facility, is not just what we're investing in it, but it's what other suppliers have to invest in this business to demonstrate compliance and control of their manufacturing processes. And when I started back in the 80s, this industry wasn't as technically advanced as it is now. The passenger transit industry has changed dramatically in the last 30 years. We cannot survive, with manufacturing equipment in a garage or in uncontrolled circumstances. So it takes a lot to be a supplier. I think it's very demanding. We have standards that we have to achieve in all these different criteria. This is just a selection. We have, as a supplier, you can have, welders have to be AWS certified. The equipment has to be validated. Their procedures have to be approved by AWS. We have upfront costs in establishing the equipment's reliability, that it won't shake apart. We have to do shock and vibration testing. We have to make sure that we're not going to cause any other onboard systems interference, or that those onboard systems will interfere with ours. So we have to go through a lot of EFI, RFI testing, EMI, RFI testing. And many companies can't afford that upfront cost. So the number of companies that can compete in this industry is not that great. We have to guarantee our materials. We have to certify that we're using U.S. steel when it's required. It can impact competitiveness price-wise, but it also is very valuable for traceability on hardware, to make sure that we've got the right appropriate quality hardware going into our products if they're truck mounted and being abused in the very smooth track that we have in the U.S., don't we? So many companies can compete, very few companies can compete all the time. Those companies that do still have to face not only technical challenges, but also be able to prove their systems are robust. We have to have robust quality management systems. If those aren't up to par, then the companies will be required to be audited multiple times, again adding a lot of inconvenience and cost to the process. It's clear at the end of the day that we can't just hop down to our local Ace Hardware and pick up a motor or an HVAC unit and strap it to the cars, although I know in the locomotive market that has been attempted with the HVAC units, because we've tried to repair them from time to time, so it doesn't really last too long. The last point on the aesthetic qualities. So a lot of our equipment, it goes to places where not even a human's going to see it during the time it's been installed to the time the car is almost retired. So aesthetic standards are still competing with the automotive industry in terms of fit finish, paint finish, scratches, dents. Our equipment leaves in perfect condition, and well beyond what others may perceive as being the quality of what is necessary to be installed on a rail car that's been in service for a week and you wouldn't even see that it is painted. One of the other last points on that is the environmental policy is becoming increasingly demanded and necessary to win and support the bidding process, and not a lot of companies are involved or have the capability to really prove they're reducing environmental impact. On top of this, we have to compete in the Buy America. We have to consider the source of the funding. 65% has to be attributable to Buy America in many cases, or for small disadvantaged businesses too. High speed in California could be up to 60% for small business enterprises. So again, we have to consider where we are going to, if we're staffing up to manufacture components, and then we have to outsource that work to meet with Buy America or with local SBEs. One of the other hardships, I get my tissue out here and start wiping my eyes in a minute, but one of the other hardships is we're dealing with very small quantities. I mean, I wish the authorities, and if there's more of you around the tables, please give us more money and buy more cars, because we're faced with such small quantities that it makes it very difficult to have economic runs of material. Just look at a Dallas streetcar. Very few people are going to start from scratch and invest in just building 6 cars. But hopefully, Brookville's got a bigger picture, and they're seeing the cars going elsewhere. So, but again, it's very difficult to manufacture many components consistently and cheaply. Everyone is specially engineered. Then we face, of course, the variable delivery rates, which let's hurry up, and then we'll wait for another year before you get going. So we'll deliver a prototype car, set of equipment. It could be in service for a year before we then see consistent manufacturing after that. And if there are any delays or unforeseen issues with that project, we could then be facing further delays in the manufacturing process. Again, it causes cash flow issues. Warranty coverage, again, that's 2 years beyond the first installation date of that equipment. If there's no delays, 5-year contract, we could be on site for 7 years. If there's delays, 10 years. 10 years could be the time that we'd be facing with being on site. And lastly, in this one, is the guarantee of support for the parts well beyond, in other industries, what would be considered obsolete. If we're supplying components into markets where cars are running for 40 years now. They're well beyond, they're servicing a life well beyond what was deemed as the original investment's 25-year time frame. And if that's not enough, then we have the last hurdles, which is, if you want to become qualified, that it's going to take time. If you want to become qualified in New York City, for example, you could be facing a car set or a linked 4 or 5 cars of equipment that has to be in service for up to a year. If you're looking at just an HVAC on a link of cars, you're looking at nearly maybe $500,000 upfront investment before you're just to become certified, and then we're waiting for a period of time before a suitable contract's announced and released. So what's the consequence of all this? Well, we've become specialists, become very many small companies that are at a very high level of competency in a small market. Yes, we require some, what you may deem high prices, but I hope you understand the reasons why some of those prices are high based upon what we're doing to become, not only become and maintain our qualifications as a supplier, but also to supply this small niche market. We're surviving the cash flow problems, again, by delays in the contracts. Can lead to businesses going out of business or layoffs to cope with times when there's a delay. Worst thing with the layoffs, you're losing your experienced people. It doesn't take, you can't just find those with rail experience or in designing equipment for rail cars overnight. This is not something that people typically go to school for. I know I didn't, but somehow managed to find my way into it. So despite all this, nonetheless, we have 1,700 companies in the U.S. supply industry. It doesn't sound like a huge number, but we have 94,000 workers dedicated to the support of the passenger rail industry. If we expand that to include buses, it jumps up to 2,600 suppliers and about 150,000 workers that are, again, dependent on the passenger transit industry. Those 1,700 businesses, though, are supporting this market. for passenger rail systems. 71 rail system companies. They're operating 85 and increasing in number, 85 and increasing commuter, metro, subway, light rail, and streetcar systems. And these guys support 89,000 workers, so it's starting to grow. And according to APTA's data for 2012, 10.5 billion trips are taken a year. And 107 million, as I learned last night, are taken just on DART. So out of 10.5 billion trips, 107 million taken right here. So how else does this benefit? It benefits us as a supplier, investment. What does it do to our investors, not our visitors, our commuters? We've got some numbers here that take through what a typical trip would cost, $1.31. By car, it could take between 23 and 57 cents. Use 57.3 cents as the IRS guideline mileage for January 2015. Average commutes at 5 miles, so we can see the cost by car, and then we get $1.56 savings per trip, which would get to about $800, $700 per year. I checked a couple of things on this too, and I thought, okay, let's look at my market out in the West Coast, Caltrans. So if I went from Gilroy to San Francisco, this is a drive of 78 miles. It could conservatively take you between an hour and 15 on when there's some kind of deserted highway, which I don't think ever exists, but it typically can take you up to about 2 hours to drive the 78 miles. Caltrans is a little more expensive at $13.25 for that trip, crosses 6 zones. However, it would cost you, by the same calculation, $45 by car. So over a year, taking the same thing, that's the $8,000 of savings if you're taking the same calculation. So depending on your mileage that you're doing by car, you can still make dramatic savings. Then you have to consider the cost of parking, the extended maintenance periods of your automobile, and the fact that you'd be depreciating it less by reducing your mileage. And not mention the last point here on reducing CO2 emissions down by 2,200 pounds per year. That's taking an average EPA CO2 per mile, 411 grams. Back to the passenger's pocketbook, or the commuter's pocketbook. One of the things I wanted to show you, again, not what's a pessimist is just an optimist with experience. So what happens if we don't have investment? It isn't maintained. So this chart's using data from this APTA study, which I recommend everyone reading because it's excellent. It's a long title, Profile of Public Transportation Passenger Demographics and Travel Characteristics Reported in Onboard Surveys from 2007. So it's quite a mouthful. But this shows what happens if the mode of transport that customer is currently not using goes away. Not unpredictably, 24% are back in cars. 22% would carpool, ride with someone else. 10% would take a taxi, perhaps Uber, Lyft these days. But I think the alarming number is 22% wouldn't make that trip. That's 22 people that you're either leaving at home. They're stranded from either working, studying, going to the hospital, whatever. So it's 22% have no means of transport if that rail or passenger transit system's taken away. And this survey was also conducted by the Transit Performance Monitoring System, TPMS, which was established by the FRA. And that too on this chart shows the same number. So this isn't a fluke. It's a very valid number. So nearly a quarter of all travelers who would not be able to travel without access to the public transit. So what do we need? We need consistent, predictable, and adequate funding. Just a maintenance level is minimum. $1 billion maintains 15,000, or nearly 16,000 people employed in this industry. But that's just maintenance. But we can increase that level of investment. Then we see benefits to reduce congestion, which we already see. We don't want to put more people into cars. I've seen so many slides of congestion, traffic, and if you live in the Bay Area, it's a daily activity. You don't need pictures. You just look out of your car windscreen. But we'll also continue to develop. Kenora alone invests $270 million a year in research and development. So this is technologies which are coming into, will be employed in high-speed rail connections, the potential 2 lines here in Texas, California, elsewhere, reducing cost, reducing or increasing the reliability, reducing maintenance costs. So we hope with that investment that we can continue to not only pay for our internal jobs, but also the thousands of employees for our suppliers that go on outside that during this during the R&D. What else needs to happen? We need to enhance the appearance in the systems in general. So we need further investment, more modern technologies, brighter, better, safer stations, bicycle and ADA accessible. Oops, click too far. Sorry here. Yeah. So the last point on bicycles, this is, we go back to what millenniums are desiring, abandoning the automobile seemingly and going to these more urban environments where you could be using 2 or 3 modes of transit per trip. So feet, bicycle, train would not be uncommon, but bicycle would become something which is required to be on board these cars or buses. The last point is on what the benefit could be. Increased spending, increased productivity, less congestion, more household disposable income. Increased productivity can come from, can create additional jobs. The effect of that grows over time. So over a 20-year period, we would see a 3.7-fold annual payback on that annual investment. That could result, if that $1 billion was spent in creation of 51,000 additional jobs. And these are 51,000 well-paying U.S. jobs. Okay. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Nick. Those are some very compelling numbers. And now I can see why Ann Canby recommended you for this panel. A plug for Ann Canby. She works with One Rail, which is a national advocacy organization. Not only do they lobby in Washington, D.C., but they also help us throughout the states. And as these 2 gentlemen so far have demonstrated, a very compelling argument that the economic benefits of rail transportation descend to many levels. I mean, your statistic that 97,000 jobs spring off from your company's operations is amazing. Last on our panel is Wiggy Shell from Georgetown Rail Equipment. Wiggy, what's going on at GREX?
We're still growing.
All right.
That's the good thing. Again, we're located in Georgetown, Texas, about 140 miles south of here. Basically, we're Texas grown. Our founder, Ned Sneed, started this company in '93 when he sold his investment in Georgetown Railroad, the short line there at the Stone Company right outside of Georgetown. And we started out with our core equipment. Where I need to go with this. You see our dump train with the material coming off, something that we invented in-house in '85. And like I said, I've been with the company since '77 in different levels, Georgetown short line as well as this one. So we invented that one in-house. And we started hauling gravel down into South Texas, take trucks off the road. And we delivered on site right off the main line. It'll hold about 1,500 tons, so you figure a truck holds 25 tons. And we were running 5 of these at one time. We were taking a lot of trucks off the road and keeping them on the job site. So they still had their job, just wasn't clogging up the roads as we went. Then we went over, and the next one is a self-powered slot. We started out with one that wasn't. It's an articulated car every 33 feet, and you can see the excavator will run in the belly of it, which is a lot safer, does ditching, tie pickup, placement, rail pulling, and stuff. All this was invented in-house there at Georgetown. And the majority of this equipment is built in Texas, down in Victoria at Safety Railway. So we've had good luck with them, even with the boom in the oil here the last few days. Our other one going down with the hopper, we build kits that we put on. For y'all that are familiar with the railroad, a lot of times they used to get up there with the hoppers and unload them manually. Take a bar, open it up, eat the dust. We've invented a system that we can put on our customers' cars, and it's remote. So it's a lot safer. They're not walking along the side. We also have a system using that white truck that will allow it to do a survey and tell you what the delta is in your material, and then you put it in an actual black box and have the locomotive start down the track, and it'll dump it to that survey. We've been real fortunate, and I have to give BNSF a plug. John Bosshart was the one that asked us if we could come up with this, and so we got on it, and he figured it would save them 25% in their aggregate needs a year. And so we appreciate their support and going along with us on that. Again, this is just showing what that survey looks like. It's a rail-bound equipment. Again, that truck is built in Georgetown. We have our own manufacturing facility there. Currently, we employ 150 people, and our jobs are spread out all across North America. And we're real proud of that. We're family-oriented. Again, this one is a new system we have, and it's, again, it's built for safety. It's tie inspection. So a lot of them still walk the track about 5 miles a day to look at their ties and see what they are. This one, we can do it at 30 miles an hour with a rail-bound truck. And we put it through algorithms that we train it, if you will, with what that particular customer's tie inspectors are looking for. And believe me, all the railroads are a little different, and they're a little different what they're looking for in the region that their tracks are in as well. And this is our latest one. This is an addition to the what we call our Aurora tie inspection. This is backscatter, using backscatter X-ray technology. The part hanging that's shielded above the track, now we're getting basically 3 dimension of the tie, but we're also looking inside the tie for hollowness. And we own the patent, about 27 of them, in fact, with that technology alone. And we rolled that out in 2 years. Again, BNSF has been real supportive in that. They asked for the first 4 trucks, and we're about to roll out our 4th one and start our season up and doing it. We've got contracts with the CSX, NS, as well as the UP. They're moving into this, and lately over the last year, railroads gotten a bad rap on these derailments and stuff. People not in, supposedly not looking at their track. Folks, they're using the latest technology on there. And it goes out saying they're trying to do everything they can, and we're just there to help make their tracks even safer, because they spend a lot of money in upkeep. And we're just fortunate enough to be in that part of the world that we're able to reinvest. We have, we got them coming in from, I like to call it my Big Bang Theory guys out there. They come up with all sorts of stuff, and on this particular one, they're still developing what else we can see with that backscatter X-ray that would benefit the railroads and everything. So, the other deal, we've gone into real estate. We've got Texas Life Science Center on our property. They have also just built in one of our buildings a wet lab for medical purposes and development. We partner up with Southwestern University on that. So we just bought a company out of Iowa. So we're moving that company to Texas. It'll be here in March, and it's another monitoring company that you can monitor structures, whether they're bridges, vertical structures, oil derricks, wind turbines, and it's really inexpensive and simple on the deltas of what it's picking up, and we look for great things with that. And in fact, we've already got some on the BNSF, CP, UP. We just installed some on the UP, so for their bridges, on bridge strikes, whether it's on the highway or the waterway. And that's our story. I do want to encourage y'all to, as mentioned earlier, get to know your state representatives and senators. We do a monthly visit with some of them. We go to Washington about 3 or 4 times a year and visit with our U.S. senators and congressmen. And we don't do anything, we're not getting any funding from them. So it's kind of like we put a smile on their face because we're coming in going, we don't want any funding. We do all this ourselves. We reinvest our money back into the company and into the industry. We add jobs, and no, they're not all from Central Texas. We've got people from West Virginia, Oklahoma, North Carolina, South Carolina that work for us. But like I say, we're still growing, and we've been really blessed with this industry. But again, I'd be remiss if I didn't say that also they mentioned about the rail contractors' safety. We're real proud of our safety record. We've gone 7 consecutive years through the NRC getting a gold safety award. And then this year we were able to attain the highest one, which is a platinum. In the rail industry, if y'all know that, that's a pretty unforgiving industry if you have an accident. And you might not come home, or you might not come home whole. And we're real proud of our men and women that are out there working and doing this job safely and doing it on our customers' property. And our customers appreciate that. So appreciate the time.
Well, thank you, Wiggy. Then that was an excellent summation at the end. We're privately financed. We're value added to the Texas and to the American economy, and we're technologically advanced. Most public policymakers think of railroads and they think of the last time they were stopped at a railroad grade crossing. When you peel back the layers and see how a vital component we are of America's economic infrastructure, it is a tremendous bargain because it is privately financed. Now, we who lobby in the public forums, we're going to try and get you more money. Public-private partnerships, you can leverage the private capital of the rail transportation industry and do wonderful things in this country. Wiggy, Nick, Craig, great job. How about a round of applause for our panel? Thank you.